hell. It's toxic air. So you should die from breathing. But yet you keep living. And you don't want to breathe because you feel it's going to kill me. I'm going to die any second. But again, you keep on going. And besides that, there's not enough air to breathe. So you don't have enough air. It's not like you can take a breath, deep breath like here. It's hardly any air at all. So each breath I took, I had to breathe like this. It was like, just like that. Barely could get any. So you're going to die any second from not enough air. But you keep going. So another one of these things you have to endure in hell. And you have to endure, like I said, the heat and the fear. You know, Psalm 73:18 talks about, you cast them down into destruction where they're utterly consumed with terrors. And you are consumed with terrors. Lying on the floor, being helpless, I had no strength in my body. But even if I did, I couldn't have fought off that thing anyway. But still, you feel like you'd want to have some kind of strength, and you don't. You're void of all strength. And to give just a couple scriptures, I want to back up and give you a few scriptures because that's what's important to me. In Isaiah 24:22, it says, they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit and shall be shut up in the prison. So he's talking about prison cells. Proverbs 7:27 talks about going down to hell to the chambers of death. And the word chamber means inner rooms. And the bars, Jonah 2:6 talks about the earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet thou hast brought up my life from corruption. And most of the commentators, the Tyndale Old Testament and the New International and some others, believe that Jonah did experience, she went to Sheol. He was right on the outside of hell. Or some believe he was inside the gate. So there is somebody in the Bible that did experience hell, Jonah. And he said in Jonah 2:2, in hell I cried out. So he's someone that experienced hell. And he talks about the bars of hell. And Job 17:16 talks about they shall go down to the bars of the pit. And it's talking about actual metal bars. So, scriptures to support that. No strength is talked about in Isaiah 14:9, talks about hell from beneath is moved to meet thee at thy coming. They will say, art thou become weak as we? And the word weak is the same word in Judges 16:7 where Samson lost his strength when his hair was cut off. He became weak. And Psalms 88:4 talks about, I am counted with them that go down into the pit. I am as a man that has no strength. Anyway, I could give you scripture for every point all the way through like this, which I love to do. But it just detracts from me telling the story. So I'll just have to make reference to a few of them. We put all of them in the book, and that's what I wanted to, was the important thing to have in the book is the scripture. These creatures were blaspheming God. They were cursing God. And I understood what they were saying. I don't know what language it was, but I could understand them. And they had a hatred for God. And they turned their attention towards me and had that same hatred for me. And I wondered, what have I done to them? But they had this extreme hatred. And so that big one that you saw, picked me up and grabbed me and threw me into the wall. Like I weighed nothing. And I felt my bones break. And you have a body in hell. Matthew 10:28 says, fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. And there's a lot of other scriptures I could give you. But anyway, I felt the bones break. I felt pain. But the pain was masked somehow. I knew it was blocked. That I didn't feel all of it. And God blocked most of the pain. He let me feel a little bit of the pain just to be able to relate to people that you do feel pain in hell. It's not allegorical, metaphorical. It's real pain. And so I felt the bones break. I fell on the floor. And the other one with those razor sharp fins all over its body picked me up and grabbed me from behind like a rag doll. And it just dug its claws into my chest and just tore open my flesh. Ripped it right open. And I looked and I felt the pain again, and I noticed there was no blood or water. But, there's a lot of scriptures where there's no blood in hell and no water in hell. And I noticed that I was completely, my body was destroyed. My wife and I like to work out, take care of ourselves, and eat right. And, it didn't matter now. Body was just absolutely destroyed. But I wondered, why wasn't I dead? What's wrong with me? How come I can't die? But you can't. You keep surviving. Each one of these things you survive. And I noticed that, the stench should have killed me. I couldn't believe how bad the smell was. I went to crawl out of the cell, and apparently they let me. About then it went dark. And so I believe the Lord's presence left, and it resumed its normal state. Because, without the Lord there, it would have been dark, totally dark, and I wouldn't have been able to see anything, so I couldn't have described it to you. So when I got out of the cell, it was absolutely pitch black, like a darkness which was beyond any darkness you could imagine. And I've been in some coal mines in Arizona and so forth, where it's way down deep dark. This was different than that. It was an evil presence about the darkness, an eeriness. You know, Exodus 10:21 talks about a darkness which may be felt. You could feel the darkness. And it was evil. Again, enough to terrify you, and just the fear should kill you. But you keep living. I looked to the right, and I could see just a little bit, because there were flames shooting high in the sky that was about 10 miles away from me. I knew it was 10 miles away. I don't know how I knew, but again, there's certain things you know in hell. Your senses are keener. You have a little better understanding than you would here. And even Erwin Lutzer, one of the scholars of today, who wrote a book, 1 Minute After You Die, he even said those in Sheol have heightened perceptions and a better understanding. And he's a scholar. I don't know how he determined that, but it's true, you do. So I knew that the flames were about 10 miles away, and it lit up the skyline just a little bit. Not like it would be here, because it was a mile across. This pit of fire was 1 mile across, so that's a lot of fire. It would light up the whole area if it was here on Earth. But down deep in the earth, the light did not travel. So I could just see barely, and it was all desolate, barren wasteland. Nothing. No greenery, not one green thing. Just rock, barren, desolate. There's scripture for all that. Isaiah 59:10 talks about we are in desolate places as dead men. And so one of these creatures grabbed me and dragged me back into the cell. And this one began to crush my head. And it just crushed my head flat. Now, how would I live with my head flattened? I don't know. I don't know if it resumed or what, but I felt my head get crushed. And again, I know the pain was masked. It was blocked. It would have been way worse than what I felt. But the Lord allowed me to feel some of it, to explain to people that there is pain. But anyway, there was 2 more that walked into the cell. I didn't see them because it was dark, but I just knew there were 2 more. And they each grabbed an arm and a leg, and were going to tear my legs and arms off. And I just thought, I can't take this. I can't take this. And right then, something grabbed me and pulled me out of the cell and placed me over next to that pit of fire that I saw. And so I was so glad to be rescued out of that pit. For a second, I had some peace. And it was the Lord, of course, that took me out of there, but I didn't know that then. So as I was placed over by the pit of fire, then I could see all the people. There were people inside the pit, screaming, people burning. And I could see the outlines of people, their skeleton form. It would just look like skeletons. I couldn't tell if there was any flesh on the people, just like skeleton forms. And they were all adult size in skeleton forms. I didn't see that there were any small frames of people, so I believe there were no children there. And also the screams were all screams of adults. You could tell the difference in the kid scream. And it was deafening. The screams were so loud because there's millions of people there. So, have you ever heard one person scream? How irritating that can be, someone scream in terror? Okay, well, imagine millions and millions of people screaming in terror. It's terrible. And it was so deafening, I wanted to stop, but you can't get away from the screams and the sounds. And I looked over and I could see the people clawing their way out, trying to get out of the cell, or out of the pit. And they couldn't get out. There were demons lying all around it, shoving them back in. But they really didn't have the strength to get out anyway. They were just trying to make a feeble attempt at getting out of there. And they were being shoved back in. I didn't want to be thrown into the fire. It was hot already. But I didn't want to be thrown in the fire. That's got to be the worst thing. And there's lots of scripture on the fire in hell. Okay, now some say it's metaphorical. It's not real flames. But that's not true. It's real flames. It's real fire. Just like you could imagine.